Hello everybody, and welcome to my Read-Aloud of Captain Underpants and the revolting fetch of the radioactive Robloxers, book 10 in the series, full color edition, the usual stuff. Let's just start. I can't draw the page.
Help! The world is in big trouble. Maybe the comic book of the next page will help to straighten things out.
The top secret truth about Captain Underpants. Once upon a time, the two were kissing George of Hell. We the boss daddies, me too. That it really made Prince named Mr. Crab. Blah, blah, blah. One time you hypnotized him. You're all bitch. They made him believe he was a superhero. You're now Captain Underpants. It was funny at first. Oh, no! But then Mr. Crab jumped out the window. What? Mr. Crab really thought he was Captain Underpants. He got in lots of trouble. Come on, Bob. No way I'm a hero. One time a big monster attacked the school. It tried to eat up Mr. Crab. George found some superpowers from a UFO. Drink a bomb. Then Mr. Crab got superpowers. Pow! Now he can fly and stuff. The worst part is whenever Mr. Crab hears someone tap the fingers, snap, he turns into Captain Underpants. And whenever Captain Underpants is on his head, he turns back into Mr. Crab. Blah, blah, blah. Alright, seriously? At this point, you should just read. Like, Dave Pilkey, why did you just number them? Why just number them here? Like, when you don't number them, then people who will buy them in the bookstore may not think they need to be read in any particular order. Or this might think the first one that they ever pick up is the first one. So anyways, in our last adventure, there was an evil guy named Tippy Tinkletrousers. That's me! He built a big rubber suit. Then he climbed inside. I'm going to destroy Captain Underpants! Oh yeah! They got in a big fight. Behold my eyes, Ray! Zap! Miss me! Tippy accidentally froze his feet to the ground. Oh no, my feet are froze! Ha ha! Clank! Rats, you broke my robot! But Tippy's roller pants was also a time machine. I'm going to escape by going back in time! Oh no! Tippy's roller pants went back in time 5 years ago. Some bullies saw the roll pens and got scared. Yeah! They got so scared they all went bunkers. Doi, goo goo gaga, niggle blue blue. Mr. Crump got blamed for the whole thing. You're fired, Superintendent. I'm a victim of soy substance. What is that? Anyway, now the future has changed. Everything is different. Since Mr. Crump got fired 5 years ago, why me? He never got hypnotized by George Hill, huh? Since Mr. Crump didn't get hypnotized, he never turned into Captain Underpants. Since Captain Underpants doesn't exist, who's that? He wasn't there to save the world. Who will save us? Beats me! Tippy realized his mistake when he came back to the present. Oh no! The world got destroyed! All because I scared those bullies! Tippy vowed to make things right. I'll fix this mess! But then, stop! Who will save us now? Chapter 1, George Hale. This is George B. Inheritance. George is the giant zombie known on the left at the time. The flat top Hale is the giant zombie number on the right with the t-shirt and the bad haircut. Remember that now. So you see, now they look totally different. They look like beastie yelly type-ish because the aliens made them drink super evil rapid growth juice. Anyway, if you read our last adventure, you may recall the final terrifying scene where Tippy Tinkletrousers ended up carrying beneath the gigantic foot of zombie nerd Harold. You were probably horrified when the super-sized shoe slammed down to the ground, leaving behind a squishy red stain. You may even commented on the surprising inappropriateness of such a murderous and bloody scene appearing in a children's book and my most recent read-aloud video. It's fun to feel offended, isn't it? Unfortunately, I'm sorry to have to tell you that there was no murder at the end of the last book. There wasn't even any blood. What happened at the end of our last story was something called misdirection. It is what happens when you're led to believe something that is true, but in reality it's not true at all. Misdirection happens a lot in real life, especially in politics, history, education, medicine, marketing, science, religion, and the Oprah Winfrey Network. I don't know what is that. Anyway. With all that misdirection out there, life can get a little confusing. But don't worry, this epic novel contains no misdirection whatsoever. This legendary tome will explain everything, from our recent narrative complexities to the vast mysteries of our universe. By the time you get to page 210, you'll know it all. You'll be a genius. You'll be smarter than the most brilliant scientist who ever walked the earth. Oh, really? So let's get started, shall we? If you ever been to the zoo, you might have noticed that really big creatures move kind of slowly. Take elephants, for example. They don't move very fast, they don't move very fast even when they're in a hurry. They might cover a lot of ground, but that's only because they're so big. If you were to shrink an elephant down to the size of a house cat, you'd be shocked at how long it takes for them to get from one place to another. They're so darn slow that it won't be long before somebody changed the tortoise and the hare to the more appropriate, the miniature elephant and the hare. But wait a minute. There is no hare! I think the really more appropriate title would be The Tortoise and the Miniature Elephant. It's the same thing with lunchroom zombie nerds. Sure, they're big and scary and stuff, but they move. So if a zombie nerd ever lifts his foot above you, over you with the intent of stomping you into a puddle, don't worry, you actually have a few minutes before you're in any real danger. Tippy found this out the hard way. When zombie nerd Harold lifted his foot above Tippy's head, Tippy screamed in horror. Then Tippy screamed again, and again. Then Jason watched scream some more. Finally, Tippy's voice got a little scratchy from all that screaming, so he got up and walked over to one of the few remaining stores on the planet to buy some cherry throat lozenges. While he was there, he purchased a new suit and bow tie, read part of a magazine, and got a foot massage. On his way out the store, Tippy noticed an extra large novelty ketchup pack that was on sale, so he bought it and dragged it back to the scene of the crime. Zombie nerd Harold's shoe was still coming down slowly as Tippy placed the extra large novelty ketchup pack under it and walked away. Tippy climbed back into his robe of pants just as zombie nerd Harold's shoe hit the pavement and crushed the giant novelty ketchup pack. And the zombie nerds probably thought it was Tippy. Tippy wanted to prank them, to fool them, just so he escape. But anyway, a bright red stain squished out beneath the zombie nerd's shoe as Tippy's robe of pants disappeared in a crackling glow of light. You see, Tippy had mistakenly caused him trouble the last time he had got back in time, so he had to go back again to undo the damage he'd done. But before I can tell you that story, I have to give you this warning. Chapter 2. Let's get serious, folks! Do you ever notice how grown-ups hate it when kids are having fun? Seriously, when was the last time you were doing something fun and some adult came over and made you stop? If you're like most kids, you're probably reading this very book because some adult wanted you to quit playing video games or watching TV. If you don't believe me, try this experiment. Grab a few of your friends, go to the corner of a room, and start goofing around. Make some noise, start laughing and cheering, maybe shout out a woohoo or two. It's been scientifically proven that 89.4% of all grown-ups will drop whatever they're doing and rush over to put a stop to whatever nonsense you're up to. You have to wonder, why are most grown-ups like this? Weren't they ever kids themselves? Didn't they enjoy laughing and cheering and goofing around when they were young? If so, then when did they stop, and why? Now, I certainly can't speak for all adults, but I'm going to anyway. This is just like Book 8. They continue to say how adults are so stupid. I think it's a lot easier for adults to stop out someone else's fun than it is for them to reflect on their own lives and figure out where it all went so miserably wrong. It's just too depressing for grown-ups to ponder all the decades of compromises, failures, laziness, fear, and regrettable choices that slowly transform them from running, jumping, laughing, fun-loving kids into grumpy, complaining, calorie-counting, easily offended, peace and quiet, demanding grouches. In other words, it's harder to look within yourself than it is to show, "Oh, you kids, cut that up!" Keeping this in mind, you might not want to smile or laugh while reading this book. And when you get to the Flip-O-Rama parts, I suggest you flip with a bored, disinterested look on your face, or some adult will probably take this book away from you and make you read Sarah Plain and Tall instead. Don't say I didn't warn you. And, looks like the books that he brought up are 7 Steps to Living a Marginally Less Unfulfilled Life and Lose Weight While Blaming Others. I don't think those are real books. Anyway, Chapter 3. Tippy returns again. Tippy Tinkletrousers was in big trouble. He had zapped himself back in time 5 years and accidentally fined 4 bullies. This thoughtless mistake set in motion a series of events that ultimately got Mr. Krupp fired. And since there was no Mr. Krupp, there was no Captain Underpants. Since there was no Captain Underpants, there was nobody to save the world from the terrible devastation caused by the villains from our first 3 epic novels. Tippy decided there was only one thing to do. Go back in time and stop himself from scaring those bullies. But in order to do this, he had to go back in time before the last time he had gone back in time. So Tippy set his Tinkle-Time travelometer for 10 minutes before the last time he had arrived in the past, and pressed the away we go button. After several seconds of made-for-television style visual effects, Tippy found himself transported to the awful night of the terrifying thunderstorm. Everything looked very familiar. He knew at any moment the 4 bullies would come ready from the school and tear across the football field. Then they would come face to face with him, well, a slightly younger version of him, and only he could stop it all from happening. Tippy hid behind the side of the school and waited as the wind howled ferociously. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of lightning struck a nearby power line. The electricity in the school went out, and all of the windows became dark. Tippy listened closely and heard the sounds of squealing and slapping and shuffling. It sounded as if a terrible struggle was taking place inside the school. Then suddenly, the back door of the school crashed open, and the 4 petrified bullies shoved their way outside. Quickly, they darted toward the football field. This was Tippy's big chance. He aimed his freezing beam for 1,000 of the running delinquents and zapped them all with a mini amount of molecularly modified ice. Again, with these alliterations, can you stop? Anyway, the 4 bullies were frozen in place. Tippy scanned the boys with his life systems monitor and found them to be perfectly preserved. The carbonite Tibana gas-infused ice had been programmed to remain solid for 15 minutes, just long enough for Tippy to do his thing. Quickly, Tippy turned toward the football field where a ball flew and it was growing bigger and bigger. Suddenly, it exploded in a blinding flash. And there where the ball of lightning had been was a giant pair of robotic pants. Boy, that was a close one, said a voice from inside the desk of the newly arrived robot pants. Captain Underpants is a lot stronger than I thought. The zipper of the newly arrived robotic trousers opened and Tiny Man peeked out to marvel at the world of 5 years ago. But to his surprise, he saw an identical copy of himself staring straight at him and tapping his gigantic robotic foot impatiently. Who are you? Asked the newly arrived Tippy. I'm you! Shouted future Tippy. You from the future! What's going on? Asked Tippy. I'm here to stop you from scaring those kids over there, said future Tippy, pointing at the frozen boys. Why? Said Tippy. What's so important about those kids? I have no idea, said future Tippy. All I know is I scared those kids when I came back here last time, and apparently it caused a chain reaction resulting in the total destruction of the Earth, more or less. I see, said Tippy. So what do we do now? Future Tippy looked at his watch. Those kids are going to start in 8 minutes and 11 seconds, he said. We've got to be gone by then. So he reached into the cockpit of his robot pants and grabbed one of his very first inventions, the Shrinking Pin 2000. Tippy aimed it at the younger version of himself and pressed the button. A powerful beam of energy blasted the newly arrived Tippy Tinkletrousers and his gigantic pair of robot pants and shrunk them down to the size of a baseball. Saw them talking really fast, so that you can keep up. Big Tippy reached out and picked up the tiny version of himself. What you there for? Shouted Tiny Tippy. I can't very well have two of us running around, said Big Tippy. I'm going to keep an eye on you. Big Tippy tucked Tiny Tippy into his jacket pocket and checked his watch again. 4 minutes and 16 seconds, he muttered to himself. He looked over at the 4 boys encased in the now cracking ice mountain. Big Tippy turned to his Tinkle-Time travelometer and programmed it for a date in the future. Time was running out. The ice around the boys was disintegrating faster. Tippy sneaked away into the center of town, pressed his away we go button, and disappeared into a ball of blue lightning. 2 seconds later, the ice mountain that had encased and preserved the boys disintegrated completely. Without skipping a beat, the 4 or 5 friends continued their mad dash away from the school. As they ran across the football field toward their home, something about Cavepeople friendship wherever they would never give me the Cavepeople. Once worry, I already read that for the 3rd time. Now, Chapter 4, Fixing the Future. Big Tippy set his Tinkle-Time travelometer for a sunny afternoon in October, 4 years in the future. He arrived as usual, and the big ball of blue lightning that grew bigger and bigger until it exploded in blind flash. Cried Tiny Tippy. I can't see a thing! Shh! Shushed Big Tippy as he shoved Tiny Tippy down into the deep, darkened depths of his jacket pocket. Big Tippy listened carefully. Hear the voice of a child muttering, "This can't be good." Tippy unzipped the zipper of his robe pants and peeked out. To his delight, the world looked like he usually did. No destruction, no giant zombie birds, no move rocks. Everything seemed pretty normal. "Hey, it's Professor Pants!" shouted a small boy whom Tippy recognized immediately. Suddenly, 2 cops standing nearby started to laugh, which angered Tippy. "Stop laughing!" shouted Tippy. "My name is no longer Professor Pants. I changed into Tippy Tinkletrousers." The 2 cops laughed even harder. "And I got a special surprise for anybody who thinks my new name is funny," said the furious professor. And yes, finally, this is when Tippy goes forward in time to bring us to the events of Book 8, thereby altering the tall line in Book 9. Jeez, Dave Pilkey, you wrote 2 books to tell us all that. But anyway, Tippy pressed the button on his freezing beam 4000, causing it to rise from the depths of his robe pants. He set the freeze ray for 20 minutes and zapped the cops, transforming them into frozen statues. "My freezing beam 4000 will take care of anybody who stands in my way," said Tippy. "And now," he said with a wicked smile, "it's time for my revenge! On Earth!" screamed George. Screamed Hale. Tippy chased George and Hale, the 2 pets, stool and crackers through town, zapping his freezing beam 4000 at them and laughing maniacally. The chase lasted all afternoon into the night. The 4 friends hid behind buildings, inside trash bins, under bridges, and even down the sewer. But it didn't matter where they sought refuge, because Tippy Tinkletrousers always found them. By the morning of the next day, our heroes had found a hiding place behind some bushes near the park. "What are we gonna do?" whispered George. "There's nowhere else to hide." "I don't know," whispered Harold. George and Harold looked at the 2 pets, shivering with them in the morning mist. "We're not going to make it," whispered George. "But there's no reason that Sue and Crackers should have to suffer." Harold's eyes began to water. "You're right," he whispered. George and Harold petted their 2 friends sadly as they devised a plan to return to the dinosaur age. We could use the purple pot to take Crackers back home where we found him," said George. "Yeah," said Harold, "and Sulu could stay there with them. They'll both be safe there." As soon as it was clear, the 4 friends sneaked away from the bushes and headed for Drumhorse Elementary School, carefully avoiding major streets and intersections. It was almost noon by the time George and Harold and the 2 pets reached the school. Cautiously, they sneaked through the front door and dashed up the stairs to the library. "Hey, Bugs!" shouted Mr. Crump angrily. "Where have you get been?" George and Harold looked down and saw Mr. Crump carrying a large cardboard box. "Well?" Mr. Crump shouted. "Get down here and explain yourselves!" George and Harold looked at the 2 pets and continued running up the stairs. Mr. Crow was furious. His day hadn't started out very well. For some strange reason, all the red curtains in his office had been disappearing, and he wasn't happy about it. So Mr. Crow had driven angrily to the store, bought a replacement box of curtains, started a big fight with the cashier, got a flat tire on the way home, and now his truant students were bringing animals into the school, ignoring his commands, and running up the stairs. You can get back here! Shouted Mr. Crow as he chased after the four fine friends. George and Harold and Crackers and Sulu raced to the top of the stairs, dashed to the library, and locked the door behind them. There they beheld their old troublesome nemesis, the Purple Potty. It was a homemade time machine that had a few quirks, to say the least, and our heroes approached it cautiously. Do you still remember how to use this thing? Asked Harold. Of course, said George. We just used it yesterday morning. All I have to do is set the controller for 65 million years ago, then pull down the chain. Easy squeezy, mac and cheesy. Suddenly, Mr. Crumb reached the library door and struggled with the locked doorknob. The boys heard a shuffling sound, followed by the jingling of keys. Let's boogie! Cried George. The four friends climbed to the Purple Potty and George closed the door. At that very moment, Mr. Crumb came crashing through the library door with his box of red curtains. He ran to the Purple Potty and banged on the door. I know you're in there! He screamed, you can't hide from me forever! Hurry! Cried Harold as George fiddled with the controller. We've got to get out of here! I'm working as fast as I can! Cried George. Suddenly, a gigantic dark shadow filled the library. Mr. Crumb turned to see a huge robotic pair of trousers at the window. The zipper unzipped and Tippy Tinkletrousers peeked through the cavernous opening. I got you now! He shouted, ha ha ha! Tippy reached from the line end. It was facing B4000 as Mr. Crumb cowered in terror. At that very moment, George finished setting the controller for 65 million years ago. Then he pulled down the chain. All at once was a brilliant flash of green light in the Purple Potty, along with Mr. Crumb and his cardboard box disappeared into a whirlwind of electrified ozone. Chapter 5. Tiny Trippy's Tremendous Task. Rats! Screamed Tippy as he watched the Purple Potty disappear. Those kids have a time machine, and I don't know where they went! What's going on? Cried Tiny Tippy from the desk of Big Tippy's pocket. I can't see a thing! Those kids took over the time machine! Big Tippy barked at the miniature version of himself. And he took Captain Underpants with them! What is it called? Asked Tiny Tippy. How should I know? Big Tippy yelled. Hey, I go right there! Asked Tiny Tippy. What do I go back down and find out? Good idea, mate! Said Big Tippy. He reached down and placed Tiny Tippy into the library. You go back inside 10 minutes and listen to everything they say. Then when I show up, tell me where they went. You got it! Said Tiny Tippy. He set his time travel for 10 minutes ago and ended up crackling as soon as he was gone. Tiny Tippy arrived at the same spot he had left, only it was now 10 minutes earlier. He heard some people running up the stairs, so he decided to hide behind the trash can. Suddenly, George and Helen, the two pets, dashed into the room and locked the door behind them. Tiny Tippy watched as the boys tiptoe toward the tall time-traveling toilet. Do you still remember how to use this thing? Asked Harold. Of course, George. We just used it yesterday morning. All I have to do is set the controller for 65 million years ago and then pull it down the chain. Easy, squeezy, mac and cheesy. Muttered Tiny Tippy. You're going back in time to the Mesozoic era. Tiny Tippy watches the four friends climb to the time machine and close the door. He saw Mr. Crumb crash through the library door and bang on the lavender lavatory. Then he saw himself, the big version of himself, that is, appear at the window. I got you now! Shouted Big Tippy. Ha ha ha! Suddenly, there was a brilliant flash of green light in the Purple Potty, along with Mr. Crumb and his cardboard box disappearing into a world with electrified ozone. Rats! Screamed Tippy as he watched the Purple Potty disappear. Those kids have a time machine, and I know where they went! I don't! Said Tiny Tippy as he stepped out from behind the garbage can. Who are you? Asked Big Tippy. I'm Tiny Tippy! Said Tiny Tippy. That's impossible! Said Big Tippy. Tiny Tippy is right here! He reached into his pocket and pulled out the miniature version of himself who had been complaining because he couldn't see his thing. I'm 10 minutes older than that guy! Said Tiny Tippy. You said back in time so I can find out where those kids went to. Oh, I get it, said Big Tippy. Good idea, me. So where'd they go? They went back in time to 65 million years ago, said Tiny Tippy. Aha! Said Big Tippy and slightly younger Tiny Tippy to themselves simultaneously. You're going back in time to the Mesozoic era! Big Tippy picked up Tiny Tippy and shoved him into his pocket next to slightly younger Tiny Tippy. Let's all go back to the dinosaur age, shall we? If we time it right, we can get there just before that Purple Potty arrives. Chapter 6, 65 million years ago. The primitive midday sky lit up with several blinding flashes. The Purple Potty suddenly appeared in the top of an ancient tree. George and Helen successfully brought Crackers back to where they had found him. But when they opened the door of the Purple Potty, they discovered they had also brought a stowaway. What the heck is going on here? Grabbed Mr. Crumb as he hung from a branch high up at the treetop. Oh no! Cried George. Mr. Crumb must have been standing too close to the Purple Potty. Was not backward in time. He got sent back with us. Harold reached out his hand to grab hold of Mr. Crumb. How could things get any worse? He asked. Suddenly, the tree started to shake. With the tree, George and Harold looked down and saw Timmy's gigantic row of heads kicking the side of the tree. What's he doing here? Cried Harold. I don't know, said George, but I think we're about to fall. The horrible kicking continued and the tree shook wildly. Finally, the Purple Potty slid sideways and toppled over. We're done! Screamed Harold as they all fell. The Purple Potty had cracked and split apart as it tumbled down the side of the tree. Mr. Crumb fell too, smacking it against every branch on the way down. Suddenly, the Purple Potty hit the ground with a terrible crash and broke apart into 1,000 pieces. Mr. Crump hit the ground too, but was surprised to find out that he wasn't hurt a bit. Big Tippy kicked through the wreckage of the pro potty, but could not find any trace of George and Harold or their pets. "Where's the thing go?" he asked.
Look!
Cried the two tiny Tippies who were peeking out of Big Tippy's pocket. Crackers had grabbed George and Harold and Sula at the last second. "Good boy, Crackers!" cried George. "You saved us! Not for long!" screamed Big Tippy as he peered peevishly from a porthole on top of his robe of pants. "You mean a porthole on his emergency hatch? Right up there. Well, where's the crack between these two halves of the emergency hatch?"
It's best not to think about it.
Anyway, George and Harold looked down at Mr. Crump, who was still trying to figure out how he had fallen 60 feet and not gone hurt. The two boys tapped their fingers. Suddenly, a welcome smile spread across Mr. Crump's face. Immediately, he pulled off his shoes and socks. Then he unclipped his tie and ripped off his shirt. He grabbed a red curtain from the cardboard box beside him and tied it around his neck as he wiggled out of his pants. Captain Underpants was back! And Tippy Tinkletrousers and his two tiny twins were in for the fight of their lives. Chapter 7, Two Tiny Traitors. George and Harold ran through the thick jungle foliage with Crackers and Sula flying above them. Captain Underpants decided to tag along too, just for fun. Big Tippy jumped onto the back of a nearby Tyrannosaurus Rex and chased after them. "You can't run forever!" shouted Big Tippy. "When I catch you guys, I'm gonna tear you apart!" "Can I help?" As the two tiny Tippies who were tucked away in Big Tippy's jacket pocket. "No!" yelled Big Tippy startled. "You two keep quiet while I take care of business! This is a job for a man, not two old twabs like you!" As the chase continued, the two tiny Tippies grumbled to themselves. "Boy, I'm gonna turn on a giant jerk buzzing us around!" The tiny Tippy. "Me too!" This is like you're a tiny Tippy. "He thinks it's a big shot just because he's huge! I should watch I still have my Goosey Go 1000. The tiny Tippy. "Then I can make myself big again! I was just thinking the same thing!" This is like you're a tiny Tippy. "But unfortunately, showed the Goosey Go 1000 levels to have a rule suit and Captain Underpants is running back and chapter ready for the last epic novel. Hey!" cried tiny Tippy. "Why don't we go back in 4 at a time to chapter ready for the last epic novel? We can grab the Goosey Go 1000 and make ourselves gigantic! I like the way you're saying, me!" This is like you're a tiny Tippy. So while Big Tippy chased everybody through the treacherous jungles of the Cretaceous period, the two tiny Tippies set their Tingle Time Travelometers for the night of the big battle from Chapter 8 of our last epic novel. Big Tippy was so engrossed in his pursuit of our heroes that he didn't even notice the teensy winky blue sparks of light emanating from his pocket as the two devious doppelgangers disappeared into the wind of the old troposphere. Now, actually, before I move on, I have to explain this right now. Remember back in Book 9, Tippy Tinkletrousers' machine wasn't just pants. He did have a top. But in Book 9, Killer Pants ripped the top half off, and that's when Tippy went back in time to scare those boys. Now he chased history so that thing never happened. So logically, should the top of the machine just be materialized into existence? Then again, his other cells aren't erased from existence, so who knows. Just to clarify, he had a spare shrinking pin 2000, of course, in the bottom half. That's what he used to shrink his other cells. But he also had a Goosey Girl 4000. It was in the top half. So now it's gone. So the other two tiny Tippy Tinkletrousers clones are going back in time to that point so they can go out to the wreckage, grab the Goosey Girl 4000, and zap themselves so they can be as big as Tippy. But that thing never happened now because they just changed history. So what the frick is going on? Tell me, Dave Pilkey. Anyway, Chapter 8, Mission Improbable. Instantly, the two tiny Tippies zapped forward in time, only to find themselves knee-deep in something creamy, coconutty, and marshmallowy. "Honey," said a mother who was standing at her dinner table, "two little pairs of pants are walking around in a roasted salad."
Oh, really?
Said her son.
"And I'm the one seeing the therapist."
"My, how the tables have turned. Now the boys think his mom is crazy." Anyway, Tiny Tippy's flying younger Tiny Tippy crawled out of the serving bowl and shook off the pineapple chunks and mandarin orange slices that stuck to their legs. Then they jumped to the floor and slid through the mail slot in the front door. Outside, they could hear the crashing sounds of the terrifying battle between Captain Underpants and Big Tippy. The two tiny Tippies ran toward the noise until they arrived at the school's football field. Captain Underpants had just started pulling on Tippy's rubber arms. One by one, the rivets in the robosuit's thick steel belt began to pop. Captain Underpants yanked and tugged and pulled, and finally the robosuit tore in half with a terrible clank. Tiny Tippy and Slider Tiny Tippy ran over to the place where Captain Underpants had dropped the upper portion of the robosuit. Quickly, they searched through the twisted metal until they had found what they were looking for, the Goosey Girl 4000. Outside, they could hear the crackling sounds of Big Tippy zapping himself backward in time. A blinding flash lit up the nighttime sky as the two Tippies dragged the Goosey Girl 4000 from the wreckage and carried it away with them through the parking lot. Soon they came to a darkened street behind some old warehouses.
"Okay,
Said Tiny Tippy.
you zap me, then I'll zap you. Aye.
Said Slightly Tiny Tippy.
How come you get to go first? Because I'm slightly older than you.
Said Tiny Tippy.
And slightly more mature. Alright.
Said Slightly Tiny Tippy, who could not argue with the fact that Tiny Tippy was indeed 10 minutes more mature than himself.
Let's just do this thing and get over with.
He aimed the Goosey over 1,000 at Tiny Tippy and dropped him on the one. And before you could even say a beam of energy zapped Tiny Tippy, causing him to grow 30 feet tall. Zap me again, said Tiny Tippy.
Alright,
Said Tiny Tippy.
but then you'll zap me, right?
Sure, said Tiny Tippy. I promise. When another bright beam of energy. This time, Tiny Tippy grew to be 60 feet tall.
Ho ho ho!
He laughed.
Behold, I've been raped by a super mega Tippy!
My turn!
Cries Tiny Tippy. Super Mega Tippy reached down and grabbed the Goosey over 1,000. He talked into the cup holder on his electrical panel and waved goodbye to Slimy Tiny Tippy. Cries Slimy Tiny Tippy.
What about me?
Sorry,
Said Super Mega Tippy.
but it's a job for a man, not an old twat like you!
Chapter 9. Meanwhile, 6 pages ago, 65 million years earlier, Big Tippy had chased our heroes to the jagged edge of a cliff overlooking the lake. Crackers grabbed Georgia Hell by their shirt collars and they all sailed safely over the edge of the cliff to join Captain Underpants in the clouds. Big Tippy's Tyrannosaurus Rex screeched to a halt at the cliff's edge and roared ferociously at the 5 flaming friends. Oh, we won! Captain Underpants laughed at Tippy. Now it's our turn to chase you! This isn't a game! Yelled at Tippy. This is serious! He leaped off of the neck of the T-Rex and grabbed Captain Underpants with his patented robotic extendo-flex mechanic gripper. Together they fell 1,000 feet into the lake below. When they emerged from the depths of the lake, something had changed. Tippy was still just as mean and orderly as ever, but Captain Underpants looked different. What the heck is going on here? Yelled the angry-looking hero. Oh no! Cried George. Captain Underpants got water set. He changed back into Mr. Quack. Quick, Crackers! Called Hero. Flies down as fast as you can! Crackers glide down toward the tempestuous struggle below, and the boys snapped their fingers with all their might. But it did no good. Mr. Krab's head was still soaking wet, so he could not chase back into Captain Underpants. Well, look what I just figured out! Cried Big Tippy. Captain Underpants turns back into a crabby old elementary school principal whenever he gets wet. You leave him alone! Yelled George, still snapping his fingers in vain. Yeah! Cried Hale. It's not a fair fight anymore. Wow! Laughed Big Timmy incredulously. He's got to be the world's easiest superhero to defeat! I could have destroyed them with a squirt gun! Suddenly, a blinding flash lit up the world around them. Then came the footsteps. Terrible, deafening, tumultuous footsteps that shook the earth with each thundering stomp. Finally, a massive shadow spread across the lake. Big Tippy looked up. It was Super Mega Tippy. Oi! Shouted Big Tippy. He quickly checked his jacket pocket and found it to be empty. Where'd you come from? How'd you get so big? Where's the other one?
No, that is important now!
Said Super Mega Tippy.
What's important now is who's in charge!
Hey, you'll never believe this, said Big Tippy, ignoring his diabolical double. I just figured out that if you get Captain Underpants wet, he loses his superpowers.
His weakness is water?
Said Super Mega Tippy.
Whoa, really?
I know, said Big Tippy. I couldn't believe it myself. Hey, I'm gonna destroy him real quick. Then we can get out of here and go rule the world and stuff.
You're not going to destroy him.
Said Super Mega Tippy.
I am.
Now hold on, Bob, said Big Tippy. I caught him, so I'm gonna destroy him.
Oh yeah!
Said Super Mega Tippy with a growl that made the surface of the lake trouble.
Well, I'm bigger than you, so I'm gonna decide who destroys who.
He took a giant step toward Big Tippy and reached down with Extendoflex mechanic gripper. Not so fast! Cried Big Tippy. He pressed upon his control panel, causing the back of his robe pants to lower. Suddenly, a gigantic metal arm emerged from the depths of Tippy's giant robo rear, revealing a 40-ton thermonuclear bomb. You take one step closer and I'll blow us all to smithereens! Said Big Tippy.
You're forgetting something.
Yelled Super Mega Tippy.
I have a bomb too, and it's a lot bigger than yours.
Super Mega Tippy took a step closer as Big Tippy pressed the button. Suddenly, a light on the side of the bomb began to flash red. A computerized voice emanating from the bomb's arming system began the countdown.
This bomb will detonate in 60 seconds.
Said the voice.
You pressed the button!
Mega Tippy incredulously.
I can't believe you actually pressed the button!
I don't care! I've been working on my events for years! I'm not going to let you rob me at this moment! I don't care if it gets my talk!
This bomb will detonate in 45 seconds.
You can't do this bomb's over!
Mega Tippy.
Once the countdown starts, it's over!
I told you I don't care! I just want to be the one who finally destroys Captain Underpants! So Mega Tippy reached out with the non-coiling Extendoflex mechanic gripper and cut Mr. Crab free. Hey! Screamed Big Tippy. What are you doing?
It's mine!
But what about me? Big Tippy. What about my ball?
Your problem!
Take Big Tippy with all his might. Chapter 10. What really killed dinosaurs? Sailed to the clouds at incredible speed.
This bomb will detonate in 30 seconds.
Said the bomb. Big Tippy flew across North America, soaring faster and faster through the stratosphere.
This bomb will detonate in 15 seconds.
said the bomb. Big Tippy began to lose altitude as he sailed toward the Gulf of Mexico.
This bomb will detonate in 5 seconds.
Said the bomb.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Finally, Big Tippy landed just off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula with a violently colossal splashdown, as seen below. Pit. Kaboosh! A massive explosion that followed low chunk of the earth 15 miles deep and more than 60 miles wide. Terrible earthquakes shook the entire planet as gigantic tsunamis and a towering wall of seawater rolling across the continent. What's happening? Cried George.
Is that some nuclear bomb?
Shouted Zoom and Mega Tippy.
Is this trigger the start of the Cenozoic era? I'm gonna become extinct if I don't get out of here!
Quickly, Zoom and Mega Tippy set his tickle time travelometer for 64,793,216 years into the future and pressed the away we go button. Suddenly, gigantic bolts of lightning began shooting at Zoom and Mega Tippy throw pants as a ball of blue light enveloped him. Quick crackers! Cried Harold. The thick volcanic gas began blocking out the sun. Fly to the blue light! It's our only chance to escape! Crackers pointing his long reptilian neck towards the crackling orb as the fourth friend sailed downwards with blinding blue lightning. Chapter 11, 206,784 years ago. A flash of white light filled the mid-afternoon haze of the Pleistocene epoch. The crystal blue lake that had once been there was now gone. In its place were vast savanna plains stretching out to thick forested hillsides and rocky caves. All was quiet except for the sounds of insects and birds and a faint rhythmic drumming far off in the forest. Where are we? Asked George. I think the better question would be, when are we? Said Harold. Super Mega Tippy was surprised to see George handling crackers and Zulu.
Well,
He said,
it looks as like we have 4 stowaways.
but what Super Mega Tippy did not realize is that he had a 5th stowaway as well. It was Flying Argentine Tippy, who at that very moment was carefully crawling down to find Super Mega Tippy's shirt.
That's too negativity thinks you can lie to me and get away with it.
Said Slightly Argentine Tippy as he jumped onto the control panel.
But I'll teach him a lesson he'll never forget.
Slightly Argentine Tippy pried up an aluminum vent and slipped effortlessly into the wiry innards of the control panel. First, he reversed the polarity on the emulsifying saucer flange inhibitor. Then he switched the blue and green wires in the reverse and globulating tractum and fractionalizer. Finally, he snapped all the wires to the freezing beam 4000's off button. Laughed Slightly Argentine Tippy.
Yes, son, that bitch who uses freezing beam 4000 is going to get a big surprise.
Meanwhile, the drama outside was getting serious. Super Mega Tippy swatted our heroes as they soared bravely through the Ionian sky. Crackers skillfully swooped and dived and loop-de-looped as the Extendo Flex mechanic gripper whizzed after him. But Super Mega Tippy quickly became impatient and unleashed 2 more Extendo Flex mechanic grippers. Poor Crackers could not outmaneuver them all, and the 4 friends were soon captured.
I got you now!
Screamed Super Mega Tippy. Hey, look! Said George, pointing at the ground behind Super Mega Tippy. There's a bunch of Cavepeople down there watching us!
I don't fall for that trick.
Said Super Mega Tippy.
As soon as I turn around, you guys are gonna try to escape.
No, seriously, cried Hal. We're not lying. Look behind you. Super Mega Tippy glanced quickly and noticed that the boys were indeed telling the truth. Standing behind them at the edge of the forest were about a dozen very surprised-looking cave people staring up in dumbfounded bewilderment.
You boys shouldn't be surprised to see cave people.
Said Super Mega Tippy as he studied the strange prehistoric people.
We're in the middle of the Pleistocene epoch. This is around the time that the first human family started to appear on Earth. I bet you dumb kids didn't know that, did you?
Super Mega Tippy turned to smile haughtily at George and Harold, but of course they were gone. Sewell had been in through 3 of the Extended Flex mechanic grippers, and the 4 friends had floated away. Screamed Super Mega Tippy as he stomped his jacket to feed in frustration. The startled cave people screamed and ran in terror back to their homes in the deep forest. Super Mega Tippy grasped straw and vines and tied Mr. Crab to a boulder underneath a waterfall.
There!
He sneered.
This should give you moist and pounds until I get buck!
And then he stormed into the forest, searching for George and Harold and their pets. Chapter 12, Calling All Cavepeople. How are we ever gonna get out of this mess? Asked Harold. I don't know, said George, but we're gonna need Tippy Tinkletrousers if we ever want to get back home. Are you kidding? Said Harold. We can't trust that guy. He can't even trust himself. I know, said George, but Tippy has a time machine and we don't, so we're gonna have to defeat him. But we need an army to defeat that guy, said Harold. So let's go get an army, said George. The 4 friends glided above the grassy plains as they followed the sounds of beating drums. Soon they arrived at the forest. The drumming was getting louder. Crackers swooped down and landed behind the bushes near the caves. Just beyond them was the Cavepeople village. George handling Crackers and Sulu peeked over the thick bushes as they watched the Cavepeople go about their daily routines. They seemed peaceful, so George decided to speak up. Hello, said George. We come in peace. We are friends. The Cavepeople looked confused and startled. They did not seem to understand. Maybe they don't speak English, said Harold. Hello, hey, said George, who only spoke one other language. Iwe omke inwe is pay. Iwe our way ins fray. That didn't work either. The cave people grunted and sniffed at George and Harold and their pets, but they said nothing. Suddenly, off in the distance, the sounds of gigantic footsteps came thundering through the deep forest. Tippy was coming, and he was getting closer and closer with each terrifying step.
I know you're in that village!
Tippy screamed,
But you can't hide from me!
Tippy crashed through the trees and stomped into the village, kicking over huts and smooshing everything in sight. The terrified cave people grabbed their children and ran for the safety of the caves behind their village. George and Henry Crackers and Sealer ran into the caves also, and hid with the cave people in the darkness as the destruction outside continued. After a while, some cave teenagers started a campfire. The flickering light illuminated the massive walls of the caves as the cave people whimpered and huddled together in horror. Wow, said George. Some army they turned out to be. It's not their fault, said Harold. They've never seen giant robo-pants before. They're just scared. If we could only communicate with them, said George. There's got to be some way to reach them. Harold looked up at the giant black walls of the cave. How about pictures? He asked. Hey, good idea, said George. Harold walked over to the campfire and grabbed a charged smoking stick from the burning cinders. Then he went to one side of the giant cave and started to create the world's first cave drawing. At first, the cave people were astonished. They had never seen anybody draw before. They laughed and pointed and jumped up and down every time Harold drew something new. Now, oddly enough, this kind of reminds me of that one Mario Bros. Super Show episode where Mario got bit by a poisonous snake. Anyway, but when Harold drew Tippy and his robo-pants, the cave people became frightened. They grunted nervously and lowered their heads in fear of submission. Wow, said Harold. How are you ever going to change their minds about Tippy? I know, said George. Let's make a wordless comic. They'll understand that. Good idea, said Harold. Let's do it. So George and Harold found a ladder and began creating the world's first comic. The cave people watched with excitement as George and Harold's tale unfolded. Soon their opinions about Tippy and his robo-pants began to evolve. Chapter 13, the world's oldest comic, starring Ook and Gluk. They quite enjoyed it, did they? Chapter 14, Clash of the Cave People. Once the Cave People read George and Harold's cave comic, they stopped being afraid of Tippy and his robo-pants. Now they were inspired. Quickly, they divided themselves into groups and began planning their counterattacks. George and Hill watched as the cave people grabbed their own charred sticks from the fire and began drawing out elaborate plans. Even though they could only speak in grunts and groans, they all understood comics, and they all knew what needed to be done. Before long, everyone high-fived and sneaked out the back of the cave. The cave people ran up the hillside, tying vines between trees, placing banana peels all over the ground, and setting booby traps everywhere they could think of. Once everyone was ready, George, Harold, and Sulu hopped up the Cracker's back, and they flew around the cave to where Tippy was still busy destroying the village. "Oh, Tippy!" called George. "Where have you been? You're gonna miss all the fun!" Tippy turned quickly and chased after the four friends, who led him directly into the cave people's traps. As Tippy ran, he glanced down and noticed the vine tied tightly between two tree trunks. Quickly, he screeched to a halt. Tippy bellowed.
Didn't think I was gonna fall for that lame trick?
Tippy rolled his eyes in contempt as he jumped over the vine and landed on a bunch of banana peels. Zip! Bam!
Yeah!
Tippy screamed as he slipped and crashed into the ground. Then Tippy started sliding on the banana peels down the steep hill toward the cliff below.
No!
Tippy willed as he slid faster and faster. Finally, Tippy flipped over the edge of the cliff and tumbled into the tar pit below with the mighty Captain. Tippy was furious. He pulled himself out of the sticky black tar and screamed,
Is that all you got?
but the cave people had a few more surprises in store for Tippy by throwing boulders on his head.
You're so wicked,
Tippy screamed as he finally came to his senses.
Is that all you got?
But unfortunately for Tippy, there was still more to come. Some cave kids are lighting his butt on fire. Screamed Tippy as his tar-covered robot caught on fire. Tippy ran shrieking toward a small pond as the flames spread everywhere. Finally, the screaming robotic fireball plunged deep into the cooling waters of the pond with gigantic splash. George held Crackers, Sulu, and the cave people gathered around the edge of the pond to see what had become of their evil nemesis. For a minute, everything was calm. Then the surface of water began to tremble. Suddenly, Tippy's bruised, battered, and burned robot body rose from the bubbling depths of the pond.
Is that all you got?
Tippy demanded as he launched toward the cave people and chased after them, but unfortunately for Tippy, they still had much more unpleasantness in store for him. In the style of Chapter 15, The Choreograph Usher to Part 1, Flip-O-Rama. As any historian will tell you, Flip-O-Rama was first created nearly 200,000 years ago on stone tablets. These cheesy animations were lots of fun to flip, but they were so heavy they often resulted in smashed thumbs and broken fingers. Ancient Egyptians, desperate to solve this problem, invented by pirates around 3500 BC so that Flip-O-Ramas could be flipped safely by everybody. So please enjoy this ancient tradition, now improved and enhanced by the modern-day miracle of paper. Boulder Bash. Rhinoblasty. And Timber Traw.
Oh my private!
Chapter 16. What really caused the Ice Age?
Is that all you
Moaned Tippy as he fell to his battered, smoldering knees. Tippy's giant robotic pants might have been a technological marvel, but they were no match for a cave person's cleverness. Tippy was in trouble, but he still had one last trick up his sleeve. He reached out his control panel and pressed the Freezy B4000's button. Suddenly, the battered top of the robot pants opened up, and the Freezy B4000 rose menacingly from the robotic innards. Instantly, a massive burst of ice blasted at the cave people. Fortunately, they all got out of the way just in time, but the ice kept blasting anyway.
What's wrong with this thing?
Said Tippy as he pressed the Freezy B4000's off button repeatedly. The button was stuck, so Tippy pulled the emergency shut-off lever. But that one budged either.
It's almost as someone has just tampered with my control panel.
Tippy, unaware that going across the floor at that very moment was someone who had just tampered with the control panel. Flying over time, Tippy, still angry they had been betrayed by his treacherous twin, had rigged the Freezy B4000 so they could never be turned off. Now the ice beam was going berserk. Glaciers and synthetic ice programmed to last for 70,000 years, cascaded from Tippy's Freezy B4000, encasing the trees and securing his robotic feet to the frozen ground. Like in Captain Underpants Book 9, when Captain Underpants did the old, "Oh, I'm hiding under this, I'm hiding one of your body parts" thing. Come on, go ahead, give it your best shot and be using it on their own body part. Remember that moment? Anyway, things were getting out of control. Tippy quickly crawled onto his command center, desperately trying to figure out a way to turn off the spewing icebergs. This was flying over Tippy's chance. He reached out with his rubber gloves and grabbed the Gluk Go-4000. Then with a mighty leap, he jumped to the opening at the top of the robotic leg and hopped down to the frosty ground below. The ice was spreading at a dangerous rate, so every time he needed to act fast. With no time to spare, he grabbed a piece of bubble gum from his pocket, chewed it up, read the comic on the wrapper, then jammed the sticky bubble gum into the bun of the Gluk Go-4000.
Now,
Just like it to be.
when I find this one up,
That's exactly what happened. A continuous stream of gross energy burst forth from the goose-shaped contraption. Quickly, Slayer retired to be jumped into the energy beam and grew to a presence 30 feet tall. Awesome! Slayer retired to be jumped in front of the beam again and again, like a child leaving through a long sprinkler. Each time he hit the beam of energy, he grew another 30 feet.
Oh no!
Slayer retired to be who is now towering above the earth at an impressive 120 feet. He reached down to pick up the Gluk over 1,000 with the probe above.
Just a few more shots and I'll be whoops!
Slayer retired to be as the Gluk over 1,000 slipped out of his rubber glove and come down onto the thick ice below him. Unfortunately, the continuously zapping beam of energy was now pointed directly at the giant amount of ice, which caused it to grow and expand and spread out even farther. Quickly, the ice began pushing its way east across the Ohio Valley and west into the part of the earth that would one day be known as Indiana. Then it began shoving its way north into Michigan and Canada and beyond. An accidental glacial period was developing rapidly, and Flying Tippy needed to get out of there fast if he wanted to avoid it. And it looks like Silver Mega Tippy is supposedly dead. Now, chapter 17. Have a nice day. Get it? Because have a nice day. Have a nice day. Mix it up a bit. Anyway, George and Hale grabbed their pets and ran as fast as they could to escape the rapidly spreading ice field. The cave buddies were right behind them. Quick, Cracker, said George. You've got to take Stool and get out of here. It's your only hope. But something was wrong with Cracker. The usually perky pterodactyl seemed to be getting sick. David's catching a cold, cried Hale. He's not used to the freezing temperatures. Soon they came upon the massive waterfall where Mr. Krabs was tied up. The ice was already beginning to turn the flowing water into frozen slush. We gotta rescue Mr. Krabs! But there's no time, George. We'll all get froze. We don't have a choice, George. We can't just leave him here. George and Hale ran toward Mr. Krabs and began pulling at the vines and holding him in place. When the cave people saw what the boys were trying to do, they also stopped running and came forward to help. But it was too late. The ice got closer and closer as everyone pulled desperately at the vines in the rapidly freezing water. The frigid, slushy water wrapped around Harold's shirt and his thick ice encased George's body. Oh, whoa. They held as he shivered in the rapidly expanding permafrost. At least we tried our best. Goodbye. The George's of ice flowed up around his face and covered the top of his head. The end had finally covered George and Harold. It was all over. The only hope they had left was that maybe someday in the future, an archaeologist would dig up their fossilized bones and have a lot of explaining to do. But even that hope seemed far-fetched at best. Chapter 18. Something much less far-fetched. Crash! Suddenly, the ice around George and Harold and the cave buddies shattered with a mighty karate chop. You don't think I'll leave you behind, did you? Just saw your tight Tippy scooped everyone up with one gigantic shovel in his rubber glove. Everyone held on to one another for warmth as Slayer and Tippy trudged south across the frosty glaciers. It was about this time that George and Harold realized that Mr. Krabs' face was no longer wet, and had been freeze-dried along with everything else around them. So they snapped their fingers, and suddenly a miraculous hero returned. Gee, it's a bit nippy today, said Captain Underpants. Forget about that, no, said George, shivering. Quickly, he and Harold filled Captain Underpants in on the severity of the situation, and before long, they all had a plan. Captain Underpants flew out of Slayer and Tippy's rubber glove and grabbed his massive belt buckle. With one sensational swoosh, Captain Underpants ripped Tippy's legs, bell and all, right off his rubber legs.
Oi, no fair!
Screamed Slayer and Tippy, who, as he stood shivering in his gigantic robotic boxer shorts. Captain Underpants quickly tied the ripped pants and legs in a knot and told everybody to climb aboard. Soon all the good guys were tucked securely into the polyester/cotton blend trousers and flying someplace safe and warm. They zipped across the vast ocean and finally came to a place that was not covered with ice. Captain Underpants swooped down and landed near the Chauvet-Pont-d'Arc cave in southern France. George and Harold said goodbye to their Cavepeople friends. We sure hope you like your new home here, said George. Keep drawing, said Harold, and take care of our pals, Crackers and Zulu, okay? Wait a minute, said George. We can't leave for pets here. Crackers is sick. He needs to see a doctor. Oh, yeah, said Harold. I almost forgot. We've got to get to the future somehow. Quickly, Captain Underpants flew George and Harold and Crackers and Zulu back to the frozen glaciers of North America. If they were ever going to get back to modern times, Slayer and Tippy was their best bet. Chapter 19, The Vow. When our 5 heroes finally reached Slayer and Tippy, he didn't seem at all surprised to see them.
I'm not at all surprised to see you.
Says Slayer and Tippy, he stepped casually from his water bottle.
I'll bet you guys want to ride back to the future, don't you?
We sure do, said Captain Underpants. Gee, that would be swell. Slayer and Tippy pointed his water bottle at Captain Underpants' face and squeezed. Splash! Well, what the heck is going on here? Said Mr. Krabs as our 5 heroes began falling to the frozen ground below. Ah! Screamed Harold. We're doomed! Fortunately, Slayer and Tippy caught them before they hit the ground. But unfortunately, they had something even worse in mind for them than a 120-foot drop to their deaths. As Slayer and Tippy set his Tinkle Time travel lumber for a day in the upcoming future, That being,
206,806
years in the future, George and Harold bemoaned their continually recurring predicament. Well, here we are again, said George. Back in the same mess we always end up in. I know, said Harold. It seems like every time we crack a joke or make a comic book, something terrible happens. You know, said George, if we ever get out of this mess, I think we should stop goofing around all the time. Yeah, I agree, said Harold. We need to quit making comic books and start paying more attention to our schoolwork. And as blue crackling light began to resolve them, George and Harold made a vow to change their ways. They pledged to give up pranks, jokes, and comic books, and then they promised to begin taking life seriously and start acting like responsible grown-ups. Wow, George and the old appear in the crackling whirling of liquid time. I feel more mature already. Me too, said Harold. Chapter 20, 30 years from now. Well, this book canonically takes place in 2004, so it should be really 8 years from now. Because I'm filming this video in 2026. Anyway, suddenly a giant ball of blue lightning exploded in the southern end of a busy Midwestern city. George and Harold looked around them and saw the familiar sights of cars and houses and fast food restaurants. Or instead of IHOP, it says, I hope this food doesn't kill me. We're home! Cried George. It sure seems that way, said Harold. But how come everything is so old?
Because we're not back where we started.
Laughed slightly retired to be.
We're 30 years in the future. No, 8 years in the future.
Why do we go to the future? Asked George.
Because
Said Tippy.
the last time I got rid of Captain Underpants, the whole world was destroyed. I just wanted to make sure that the world could survive the next 30 years, no, 8 years without him. And it looks like it can.
Tippy marched over to the elementary school and placed George and Harold their two pets on the ground.
Get comfortable, boys.
Tippy.
I'm about to destroy Captain Underpants once and for all, and I want you kids to have the best seats in the house.
George and Harold looked up in horror, slightly retired Tippy began knocking Mr. Krupp around like a beanbag. I can't watch, said Harold as he petted his pet pterodactyl, who always seemed to be getting sicker. Sulu scampered around the playground, finding twigs and branches and leaves and weaving them into a nest to help keep Crackers warm. Remember, said George, if we ever get out of this mess, we're going to straighten up and start acting like grown-ups. That's right, said Harold as he placed Crackers into the warm nest that Sulu had made. We're going to be responsible and mature from now on. As Tippy kicked Mr. Krupp around like a soccer ball, George and Harold got distracted by a loud commotion behind them. Two teachers were yelling at the students on the playground, instructing them all to stop paying attention to the fierce struggle raging above them, and demanding that they straighten up and start acting like grown-ups. But wait a minute, why aren't George and Harold doing anything to help Mr. Krupp? Then again, he is in Mr. Krupp mode, and after all that he's done to these kids, why exactly would they want to help him? Also, how does he stand a chance against this guy? But also, Slayer to tight to be, this guy doesn't even know that he's Captain Underpants. You are revenge on Captain Underpants, not Mr. Krupp. If you're gonna be like, oh, I can't have my other selves destroy Captain Underpants even though they're me, then surely you want him to be in Captain Underpants mode when you're kicking his butt. Anyway, as the battle intensified, the obnoxious teacher screamed louder and louder, hurling threats and insults at the curious students. Boy, I sure wish those two teachers would chill out, said George. I know, said Harold. They're yelling so loud I can't even hear the fight. Suddenly, a rusty green 2034 Honda Civic pulled into the parking lot. A familiar-looking character came storming out. See, I told you this took place in 2034. Anyway, it was Mr. Krupp, only this was a 30-year-older version of Mr. Krupp. He was wrinklier than George and Harold were used to, with a scruffy white beard and mustache, and pants pulled up to his armpits. Mr. Krupp marched toward the playground, opened his mouth, and screamed four friends and sent shivers down George and Harold's spines. Mr. Beard! Mr. Hotchkiss! George and Harold froze. Oh no, Mr. Harold. Oh, Mr. Krupp recognized us. What are we gonna do? Asked George. How are we ever gonna get out of this mess? Old Mr. Krupp marched toward George and Harold, getting closer and closer as they shivered in horror. Then old Mr. Krupp walked past George and Harold, continued walking toward the playground. Mr. Beard! Mr. Hotchkiss! He screamed again. Get those kids inside right now! Who is he talking to? Asked George. I have no idea, said Harold. Finally, the two screaming teachers turned around. Chapter 21. George and Harold's worst nightmare. Do you know that feeling you get when your stomach sinks? It usually occurs just after the realization that something bad has happened or is going to happen. People often feel this way when they discover they forgot to study for big tests, or they're going to miss the school bus, or the giant gulp of milk that they just swallowed expired 3 weeks ago. Now imagine that feeling magnified about 1 trillion times. This is the feeling that occurred in George and Harold's stomachs when the two obnoxious screaming teachers turned around. It was them. More precisely, it was future versions of themselves. George and Harold grown up to be teachers, but they weren't the nice, wonderful, imaginative teachers that you might be used to. No, sir. George and Harold had evolved to the terrifying, boring, invincible teachers that they were used to. Mr. Krupp squished between 40-year-old Harold and 39 and 3/4-year-old George and slapped a sweaty arm around each of them. I sure am glad you fellas are here, said Mr. Krabs. It's a tough job making everybody miserable, isn't it? It sure is, boss, said 40-year-old Hale. You know it's hard to believe that you guys used to be the craziest kids in the school, said Mr. Krabs. Thank goodness you both started taking life seriously. Yeah, said 39 3/4-year-old George. One day about 30 years ago, we saw the error of our ways, so we made a vow to straighten up and fly right. Yup, said 40-year-old Hale. From then on, it was nothing but serious study, strict discipline, and George and Hale looked nervously at each other as their adult doubles continued screaming at the unfortunate children on the playground. Remember that vow we just made to stop goofing around and start acting more like grown-ups? Thanks, Harold. Yeah, said George. I think we should vow a new vow that unvows the old vow we just vowed, said Harold. Let's get vowing, said George. That kind of reminds me of those skateboards saying dude. Like, dude is the only word in their vocabulary. Anyway, so as the terrifying battle raged above their heads, George and Harold shook hands and promised to always be themselves. They pledged to keep goofing around, make even more comic books, and to stop taking life so darn seriously. Let's daydream more too, said George. Yeah, said Harold. Enough of the sitting still and paying attention stuff. As George and Harold vowed their new vows, something strange began to happen. A soft wind started to blow, the sound of wind chimes began to tinkle in the air, and the grown-up versions of George and Harold slowly disappeared. They vanished gradually at first. Then after about a minute or so, Mr. Krabs was left standing there all by himself. Wow, said George. You mean it's that easy? All you have to do is make up your mind and stick to it, and you can change the future? Yeah, I guess so, said Harold. George and Harold walked up to old Mr. Krabs, who was looking a little confused, and tapped their fingers. Suddenly, a familiar smile stretched across old Mr. Krabs' face. Well, said George, pointing out to the terrifying battle exploding above their heads. What are you waiting for? Yeah, said Harold. You're getting your butt kicked out there. Go up yourself. Quickly, old Mr. Krabs tore off his clothes, dashed into school, grabbed a red curtain from his office, and flew out his window with a triumphant "Oh!" Old Captain Underpants immediately rescued Mr. Krabs and brought him back down to the ground. Whoa, I'm sure glad that's over with, said Mr. Krabs. Relax, Bob, said George. You're just getting started. And with a snap of George and Harold's fingers, Mr. Krabs returned to his heroic self once again and flew into the sky to fight alongside his future self. Chapter 22, The Grand Fall Shot to Part 2 of Flip-O-Rama, which I won't show you. Actually, I might show you this. A fistful of nose hairs. What the frick, Dave Pilkey? Ew! A sky high. Kicking the guy. That is disgusting, because I know that he's a bad guy, but like, oh my, imagine this happened to you! Jeez, man, the tooth hurts. Oh my god! Now we get to the part that everyone was waiting for. Chapter 23, How the Universe Really Began. Slanger Time to be might have been ginormous and powerful, but he was no match for two Captain Underpants. He fell to his massive robotic knees in a thunderous cloud of agonizing defeat. But Slanger Time to be wasn't ready to give up just yet. He reached down to his control panel and pressed the nuclear bomb vote, which is conveniently located between the strawberry milkshake and the low-fat mad chocolate cookie dispenser. Suddenly, a panel at the rear of the roller box was opened up, and a 160-ton thermonuclear bomb emerged.
Slater defeated me!
The Slanger Time to be, he pressed the button that started the countdown to doomsday.
But I'll still get the last laugh!
Suddenly, a light on the side of the bomb began to flash red once again. A computerized voice emanated from the bomb's army system and began the countdown once more.
This bomb will detonate in 60 seconds,
said the voice. No! The last of all those bombs went off and killed all the dinosaurs! But this bomb is way bigger than the last one, cried Harold. This bomb could blow up the entire planet!
This bomb will detonate in 45 seconds,
said the voice.
Correction!
This line every time to me.
I just activated my graviton levitator, which will give this bomb more destructive powers than a supernova. This thing's gonna blow up our entire galaxy!
This bomb will detonate in 30 seconds,
said the computerized voice. What did the guy? Well, said George, it was fun while it lasted. So long, old friend. Bye, said Harold. As the two friends shook hands, a huge gust of wind almost blew them over. Swoosh! It was Crackers and Zulu. George and Harold passed whoosh by them as they flew up to the opening of the radioactive robot boxes and fluttered down to the command center inside. Zulu's bionic brain quickly figured out the complex control panel of the Tickle Time Travelometer, and together the two animal friends began mashing down the buttons on the switchboard.
This bomb will detonate in 15 seconds,
said the computerized voice as Crackers feverishly packed at the controls. Finally, Zulu pushed down hard on the away we go button, and the radioactive robot boxes were engulfed in one more gigantic ball of blue light. Suddenly, the radioactive robo-boxers and their three occupants were zapped back in time 13.7 billion years ago. Back to a time before time existed. Before anything existed. There was no Earth, no sun, no planets, no universe. There was nothing at all. Except for the computerized countdown on 160-ton thermonuclear bomb.
This bomb will detonate in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Chapter 24. To make a long story short, Chapter 25. The Big-Kabloosh theory. The heat from the exploding supernova caused the universe to spring into existence and expand rapidly. As it expanded, it also began to cool, allowing its energy to be converted to lots of different subatomic particles. It wasn't long before these particles combined to form atoms, which combined to form matter, which combined to form stars and planets, and you and me and everything around us. Scientists usually refer to this event as the Big Bang Theory. But to be honest, the explosion sounded way more like a kabloosh than a simple bang. I guess you just had to be there. Chapter 26. What have we learned today? Remember the beginning of this book I told you you'd be smarter by page 210 than the world's most brilliant scientists? Well, congratulations! You now know what killed the dinosaurs, who started the last ice age, and how our universe actually began. Unfortunately, this information is not something you can use for any practical benefits. So if you ever get tested on this stuff in school, please don't answer with the truths. I can guarantee you it will not go well. Because this is the unfortunate fate of super smart people like us. There's rarely a place where we can use our vast knowledge, so we must be content to simply roll our eyes at people, shake our heads patronizingly, and sing that inspiring old song, I'm smarter than you! For your convenience, sheet music has been provided on the following page. Now let's get back to our other heroes, shall we? In chapter 27. Meanwhile, 30 years from now... Oh my god, they keep saying it wrong. It's 8 years. Where'd they go? Cried George as he looked up into the sky where the Tippy's radioactive robot boxers had just stood. They disappeared, said Harold. They just vanished without a trace. Captain Underpants and his beardy old twin flew down to George and Harold. What are we going to do now? Asked old Captain Underpants. Why don't you go fly into that school and splash some water on your face? Said Harold. Sure thing, boss, said old Captain Underpants. He flew straight to the nearest ring and found it. In no time at all, he returned to his crabby old self. Well, said George, what are we going to do now? We're stuck in the future without a time machine. George, said Harold as he looked down at Cracker's neck. We got no money, no identification, no nothing, said George. George, said Harold again, looking closer into the nest. It's not like we could just go back to school and start off where he left off, said George. George, said Harold the third time. What? Asked George finally. Harold pointed at the nest that Sula had made for Crackers. In the center of the nest were 3 purple and orange speckled eggs. George's mouth dropped open. What are those? He cried. I guess Crackers wasn't sick after all, said Harold. He was pregnant. Well, Crackers is a boy. Boy can lay eggs. Maybe Crackers is a girl, said Harold. Oh yeah, said George. I guess that would make more sense. See, now they finally know that Crackers is a girl. Because remember back in book 8, she did the opposite of what she was hypnotized to do, like Miss Ribble did in book 5. Anyway, George and Harold carefully picked up the eggs and examined them. We've got to keep these eggs warm until Crackers and Sula get back, said George. But we don't know where they went, said Harold. We don't know if they will be back. Then we're just going to have to raise these eggs on our own, said George. That's the least we can do. Spoiler alert, they don't come back. They committed the ultimate sacrifice and they died. R.I.P. Crackers and Sulu. Chapter 28. The final chapter of the very last Captain Underpants epic novel.
We both know that's not true, and my legal team is gathering evidence as we speak.
George and Harold and Captain Underpants each held an egg close to their bodies to keep them warm. Then they started walking. Where are we going to go? Asked Harold. I guess we should try our houses first, said George. Maybe our parents still live there. Good idea, said Harold. Suddenly, a brilliant ball of flashing light appeared in front of them. The flashing got more and more intense until it exploded with a blast of crackling lightning. And there, where the flashing ball of light had been, was a gigantic glow-in-the-dark robotic squid. The top of the robot squid opened, and George and Harold's nemesis, Melvin, sneakily popped his head up. Greetings, said Melvin. I have come from the past to bring you guys back home. Hey, wait a minute, said George incredulously. How did you know where to find us? Let's just say an old friend led me to you, said Melvin. Okay, said George. Works for me, said Harold. You see, Melvin continued, when I designed Sula's robotic endoskeleton, I installed a boring, said George, interrupting. Yeah, said Harold. We stopped listening like 10 seconds ago. Well, listen to this! Melvin shouted as he reached down and grabbed our heroes with his robo-squid arms. You 3 losers and your precious eggs are coming with me! Where are you taking us? Cried George. You'll see soon enough. Melvin laughed maniacally. You'll see soon enough! Suddenly, the gigantic glow-in-the-dark time-traveling super squid began to shake and sputter in a buzzing ball of electrified light. Oh no! Cried George. Here I go again! Cried Harold. Oh, wait a minute. what's really happening here? Well, no. But this book was brought to you by Dave Pilkey, the creator of the entire Captain Underpants series. Read the books. Enjoy the books. Read the spin-offs. Enjoy the spin-offs. And I'll see you next week where I read the next book. Counter the rest of the tyrannical retaliation of the Super 2000. I'll see you there. Goodbye. If you like, comment, and subscribe. Goodbye.